Here?
Who's that?
No.
Okay, we'll get started. December bracha, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. So I was going to start a new mimer, then I realized
Come on, we just started.
so I just realized we don't have enough time to finish it, so it won't start. But what I want to do is cover a few dates, the very important dates that are coming up. We won't be having classes, so I just want to give you a little bit of a insight on those dates, what they're about. And Amir Tashem, I understand that most of the girls are hanging their hair around until the next 2 weeks. So maybe we'll be able to come around the dorm, have a little fabrengen, and talk about it, but just not for the start. So, first of all, today is one of those dates. Today is the 15th day of Sivan. And what is the 15th day of Sivan? So this is the time in 1927, one of the major events in the previous generation, and one of the major days in the Lubavitcher calendar, and really it's the calendar of Kal Yisrael, and that is when the Friedrich was arrested and then miraculously freed from jail. And this had to do with supporting Yiddishkeit in all of Russia. The day he was arrested was today, Tezvav Sivan, 1927. On the surface, you would think that this day should be a sad day because it's the day that he was arrested. But it's interesting, and the Rebbe always teaches us to look at things from a different perspective. And the Rebbe says, at the time, it was definitely a sad day. It was a shocking day. But now that we look back in retrospect, and we see everything that came out of it, the miracles that came out of it, and all the good that came out of it, which I'll talk about soon. So we realize that, in essence, this is part of Hashem's plan to lead to bigger and better things. And the analogy that Rebbe gives is like planting a seed in the ground. On the surface, especially someone who has no knowledge of what a seed is and what are the results of planting seeds and all these things, all they see is you're taking something which looks like it's something important and you put it into the ground, it means you're burying it and it's being destroyed. But in essence, this is part of a process where a tree will grow, beautiful tree with many branches, many leaves, many fruits. And the reason why the Rebbe is choosing this mashal, it's very different than other mashalim. Usually the classic mashal that you would give when you want to bring out that even though something negative happened, but in essence it's for a good purpose, the classic mashal is a person who's chas v'shalom going through a painful medical procedure, let's say going through surgery. Someone who has no understanding of medicine would walk into a room and see that a person is laying on a bed, he's tied down, strapped down to the bed. There's people standing around him with masks on their face, knives in their hands, and they're going to cut him. So anybody who would see it would be screaming that this is murder, call the police. But the reality is that it's for a purpose, which is a benefit. And not only that, what else does it say in the book? That this person asked the doctor to do it. Not only asked him, he paid him a lot of money to do it.
And also you wait for a long time.
And he waited for a long time to do it. Why? Because ultimately, by going through this painful process, his heart will be healed and he'll be healthy and he'll live many, many long years. But even in the mushal, no matter how good you make the mushal, basically you're talking about a painful process and a very agonizing process, but it's going to lead to something good at the end. When you plant the seed in the ground, nobody looks at this as agonizing. Nobody looks at this as painful. It's on the contrary, it's exciting. We're planting seeds. A tree is going to grow, which means it's so clear that what's going on now is leading up to something so positive that you don't even see it as a negative thing. And the Rebbe says now, when we look back in retrospect, we realize that when the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested, that was like planting the seed. So the Rebbe instructs us that this day should not be commemorated as a sad day, but on the contrary, to focus on the miracles that came out. So that's one date. I'm going to skip a day in the middle. Another date that's part of this whole process is Gimel Tammuz. Gimel Tammuz is when the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested, Alpi Teva, or by the natural order. There was no way that should have been Rahman al the end. The night that he was arrested, they arrested 12 other religious leaders from other religions, and they were all executed that same night. Very little time to work on anything, just executed them all. And the Frierdiker Rebbe was part of that list. And it was only a miracle if you read the story. There's a book called A Prince in Prison, I think it's called. It has the details of the story, how the Frierdiker Rebbe prevented that from happening. Hashgacha Protis, he walked down the wrong hallway, supposedly, and as a result of that, his life was saved. And as a result of that, his life was saved. And not only was saved, but a little while later, he was released from jail. So, and all that is, I don't know if we'll have enough time to go into the details. I'll see how much I can cover. It was all miracles that this was able to happen, really miraculous. But when he was released from jail, it wasn't so simple. They didn't allow him to leave the jail. They didn't allow him to be free completely, but that he had to go to a city called Kostroma, and he would be in that city and confined to the city. He wasn't allowed to leave the city. So they could monitor and supervise his movements, make sure that he doesn't do the things he always did to strengthen Yiddishkeit. So he was meant to be in that city for 3 years. The Frierdiker Rebbe said that when he came to the office and he saw the paper when he had his verdict, on one line it said, God forbid, the opposite of life. And then it was crossed out and said next to it, no. On the next line, it said 10 years hard labor camp, crossed out and said no. Then it said 3 years confined to the city of exile, Kostroma, said yes. That's where he went. So he was going to be there for 3 years, and he was only there for 1 week. The rule was that every week, once a week, he has to come to the office and present himself to show them that he's still here. So he came a week later after Gimel Tammuz. And what day was it? Yud Beis Tammuz, happens to be the Frierdiker Rebbe's birthday. And when he came to register, they said to him, actually, we got orders from headquarters that you're free. But because it's a public holiday today in Russia, we can't give you the documents, the legal document. You have to wait till tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll give it to you and you can go home. And that's why we celebrate 2 days, Yud Beis Tammuz and Yud Gimel Tammuz. Yud Beis Tammuz was the actual day that he was notified, and Yud Gimel Tammuz was the day that he physically left the jail. And this was the beginning of a new era where a birthday is celebrated. And the idea that a birthday is a day that your mazel is the strongest. It was on his birthday that he was freed from jail. So these are the 3 dates. Today is the first day when it all began. Gimel Tammuz, when the Frierdiker Rebbe went out of jail, but he still had to go for 3 years to be in exile. And then Yud Beis Tammuz and Yud Gimel Tammuz was the day that he was actually released from jail completely. Now there's another date during this time, and I'll soon elaborate more, but then I'll go back to that. But the other date is, and I'll give this out soon, Chav Ches Sivan. Today is Tezvav Sivan, and in 2 weeks will be the 28th of Sivan. 28th of Sivan is the day that the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin arrived in America. So there's two things about that. Number one, this is the day to thank Hashem because the Rebbe and the Rebbetzins life was saved. As we know, the Frierdiker Rebbe had 3 daughters, no sons. One daughter lived with the Frierdiker Rebbe here in America, and they came to America with the Frierdiker Rebbe. Her name was Chana, and her husband's name was Rashad Rashmari Gurari. They lived in 770. And they had another daughter, her name was Shendel. Unfortunately, she and her husband were killed by the Nazis. And the third daughter, which was in 100% danger, they were in France, and the Nazis occupied France, and they went from one place to another to another. I'm going to give you a booklet, those who want to read more details. Eventually, they were able to leave. It was interesting, it took a long time to get a ticket. That was a hardship to get it. First of all, to get permission to leave. America should allow them to come. And after months and months and months of getting permission, then it was hard to get a ticket. Finally, they got a ticket. And they were about to leave. They got a telegram from Frierdiker Rebbe not to take this boat. And unfortunately, that boat was attacked and sank. And they went with the next boat. And they came to America, Chavches Sivan. And the Frierdiker Rebbe did not meet them until 3 days later. No one knows the reason. That could be the Frierdiker Rebbe himself gave the reason, that it was so emotional for him that he had to give himself time because he was physically not so well at the time. He was in a wheelchair. It was so emotional that he needed the 3 days simply to be able to contain himself, to be able to meet them. And all these events have much more to it than meets the eye. But let me talk about Chavches Sivan first, and then we'll go back to the story of Yud Beis Tammuz. The date that the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America is Tes Adar, 9th day of Adar Sheni. And there are many sikhs from the Rebbe about what is the significance of the Frierdiker Rebbe coming to America. And again, the same thing. He was saved from the Nazis. The Frierdiker Rebbe was in Poland after the war broke out, and bombs were falling on Poland, and unfortunately, buildings were collapsing, people were dying, and miraculously, the Frierdiker Rebbe was saved. From Poland, he went to Latvia. Latvia, the war did not start yet. And from Latvia, who later, eventually the Nazis came there, from Latvia, he went to America. And the day they came to America was Tes Adar Sheni. So the Rebbe spoke about this and explained that there's 2 things. Number one is the Gashmi, the part, that his life was saved. And for that we say, and the other part is that this was another move, another stage in the whole process of Mashiach. The way the Rebbe explained it was that coming to Mashiach is all about revealing godliness in the world. And that's why the spreading of Chassidus is one of the things in our generation that brings Mashiach closer. So the Rebbe said that America, it's all based also on a sikh of the previous Rebbe. America on the globe is called Chatzi Kadra Tachti, which means the lower part of the globe. In other words, if you look at the globe, it's a ball. So what's lower, what's higher? Higher is where Eretz Yisrael is, and this is the lower part of the globe. And in this part of the globe, in all the generations, there wasn't Torah, mitzvahs, people didn't learn Torah, people didn't do mitzvahs. There were hardly any Yidden here for since the beginning of creation. And on top of that, Matan Torah itself was given in the higher part of the globe. So therefore, the lower part of the globe is the lowest part in this physical world, as the least godliness in it, in a revealed way. So the Rebbe explained as follows. When you want to lift a building, and you want to make sure that every single part of the building is lifted, you have to lift it from the bottom. If you lift it from the middle, then the top floors will be lifted, and the bottom floors will be standing there. If you lift it from close to the bottom, there'll still be parts there. But if you go all the way underneath, and you lift it from the bottom, every single floor will be lifted. And that's why Torah mitzvahs is mainly in this world. There's Atzilus, there's Bria, there's Yitzira, there's Asiya, and there's this Gashmizical world. Whatever we do here is lifting the bottom. When we lift the bottom, we're lifting the world of Asiya, the world of Yitzira, the world of Bria, the world of Atzilus, Keser, Ak, lifting at Tzimtzum, everything up there gets lifted because we lifted the bottom. However, in this world itself, if you go to the lowest place of the world, we're lifting the whole world in a very different way. And that's what happened once Yiddishkeit, I want to say the center of Chassidus, was transferred from Europe here to America. Came to this place, which is the lowest place in the globe. And here, spreading Chassidus not only is present, but from here it spreads to the whole world. So this is how it's bringing the world ready to Mashiach. Then, when the Rebbe came, it took things on a new level. And as soon as the Rebbe came, the Frierdiker would put the Rebbe in charge of 3 organizations that he established. The Rebbe was in charge of them. And of course, that was just the beginning. 9 years later, the Rebbe became the 7th Rebbe of Chabad. So basically, coming to America, the Rebbe refers to it as a final step and a final stage in the process of elevating the world and preparing the world for Mashiach. What led to it? In Derech HaTeva, the Rebbeim of Chabad were all the years in Russia, in Lubavitch, and then the Rebbe Rashab was the one who had to leave Lubavitch because of World War I. They went to Rostov. Then the Frierdiker Rebbe had to leave Rostov because of the communists, and he lived in Leningrad, and then because of the arrest, he had to leave Russia, and he went to Poland. Went from one place to another place. Eventually, he came to America. In other words, the fact that he was arrested and eventually freed from jail, what it led to was that he would come to America. And what we're talking about now, how coming to America was the final stage in bringing Chassidus to the lowest place of the world, which affects the whole world, that came as a result of his arrest. And in fact, as a result of that, the whole process of spreading Chassidus became global like never before. It was much more limited before. Even in the times of the Frierdiker Rebbe himself, it was still limited to basically where it was in Europe, and then it was here in America, in Israel. But now it became literally global, as we know. It's not a place in the world where there isn't any Chassidus being taught. And therefore, this prepares the whole world for Mashiach. But all this is a result of having to leave Russia because of what happened at that time. Then we have another date of Gimel Tammuz, which is very much relevant to us more than anything else. And that is the Gimel Tammuz of the Rebbe's passing. And this year is going to be paid base, so it's 28 years. But people usually come from the whole world to be here during that time. And as you're probably well aware, that there's all sorts of interpretations and insights and ways of understanding what is Gimel Tammuz and what does it mean and what is it about and how should we reacting. And there are different paths, and you'll hear it, you'll see it, and everybody does what resonates with them or what they understand best. But one of the things which is very important to point out is the Rebbe told us many things about the previous Rebbe. And one of the things the Rebbe told us, and repeated this many times, it's printed on the Likutei Sichos in many places, is when you see how the previous Rebbe spoke about any other Rebbe, that teaches us how we should perceive the previous Rebbe. Because all the Rebbes are really one. Many, many places. So what does it teach us? That when we look and we see how the Rebbe speaks about the previous Rebbe, that teaches us how we should be speaking about the Rebbe. One of the things that the Rebbe said regarding the Frierdiker Rebbe was, and as you all know, the focus on the Maimer Basiligani, that being that this is the last Maimer that he said, or he didn't say, but he hand printed it and gave it out. In those days, he didn't say it. The last Maimer that he gave us. Therefore, it must be that in this Maimer, and what it says in this Maimer, it is a source of how we should conduct ourselves all these years after Yud Shvat. This is the last thing that he gave us. At other occasions, the Rebbe said he doesn't mean only the last Maimer, but whatever he spoke about the last year or year and a half. To give one example, and that is Yud Beis Tammuz is the birthday of the Frierdiker Rebbe. At that point, everyone was saying the Frierdiker Rebbe's kapitel, which is Ayin. He was turning 70. So everybody was saying kapitel 70. Now, after Yud Shvat, I'm talking about 1950, nobody knew what are we supposed to do. Do you still say the kapitel of someone who's no longer here physically? And if you do say, do you just say the same one or you say the next one? Does that make sense? So the Rebbe said that if you look at what the Frierdiker Rebbe spoke about a year ago, Yud Beis Tammuz time, you'll see that he already answered this question. He told us then what to do. It doesn't mean that if you look in the Sikha, he says, okay, you should know next year, this is going to be the situation. And you should say, the Rebbe said, it's not in a clear way, it's in a subtle way. But if you look good, you'll see how the Frierdiker Rebbe spoke about it. And basically, it's a long thing, it's a long story with a lot of details. But at the end of all the details, the words of the Frierdiker Rebbe was that every chassid should say a kapitel Tillim, an extra chapter Tillim, and ask Hashem that the schus of the Rebbe should shine upon him and should penetrate in a deep internal way. So the Rebbe said what he was alluding to was not just say Tillim, say the Rebbe's kapitel. And then he explained that it should be the next year, 71, 72, and you keep going on that. So what was the point? That because he spoke about it, that he starts to see, why did he speak about this last year? Why not 2 years ago? Why not 3 years ago? And the answer is because last year is when he started to speak about things that are relevant now. You might remember a few weeks ago, we were learning a Maimer about memory. Remember the Maimer I told you from the Kuti Torah? The one that Rebbe says helps for memory. Oh, you don't remember because you didn't learn the Maimer. Okay. The Maimer is called Hadarta Pnei Zaken. And as an introduction to the Maimer, we were reading the Sikha where the Frierdiker Rebbe says that the year that his father was nostalgic, throughout that year, he spoke a lot about this Maimer. And the Frierdiker Rebbe says, where was my head? How come I didn't realize what he was alluding to? We know why I didn't realize, because he didn't even want to entertain that kind of thought. But clearly we see that the Rebbe in the last year spoke about things that are going to be relevant after this happens. So clearly for us is the same, that we look mainly in the Sikhs of Nun Aleph and Nun Beis to see what we need to do now, because that's where the Rebbe gives us instructions what to do after we won't be hearing Sikhs anymore. So first of all, that's the answer to people that ask, you keep talking about Nun Aleph, Nun Beis, Sikhs, Mashiach. There's a lot of Sikhs. There's 40 volumes of Sikhs. Why are you so into only these Sikhs? This is the answer, because these are the Sikhs that are the last year and a half. And in these Sikhs, the Rebbe guides us what we should be doing now after Gimel Tammuz. But mainly I wanted to talk about Gimel Tammuz itself. Tavshin Nun Aleph, Shabbos was Gimel Tammuz. And that Shabbos, the Rebbe spoke about Gimel Tammuz. And he said something which is extremely relevant. He said that when the Frierdiker Rebbe was released from jail on Gimel Tammuz, nobody understood how we're supposed to really be reacting. Is this something good or is this something terrible? In other words, first of all, the Chassidim thought it was terrible because they understood the Frierdiker Rebbe was being released from jail. They got all excited. Then they find out, no, he's going to be in a city far away for 3 years. So they're very broken. And not only that, people didn't know with the Soviets, with the communists, you never know what they're thinking, what they're planning. The reason in Derech HaTeva why they freed the previous Rebbe was because there was tremendous pressure, political pressure from other countries, from America, from Latvia, and other countries. And therefore, they freed the Frierdiker Rebbe. But they have ways of doing things that are not legal and not official, and something can happen to a person, car accident, other accidents, and chas v'shalom, who knows what can happen. So therefore, no one knew if this was something good or something, God forbid, the opposite. After a week later, Yud B'Tamuz, the Rebbe was released from jail. We realized then, the Rebbe's words, that Gimel Tammuz was Aschalta de Gola, was the beginning of his redemption. In other words, it began on Gimel Tammuz, but we didn't realize it because on the service it looked like the opposite. So if you stop and think, and this is the way Chassidim relate to Gimel Tammuz, that happened in our generation. That even though on the surface it looks like a black, dark day, the day that the Rebbe is no longer here, we don't see the Rebbe, and the day that sort of raises questions to everything the Rebbe told us, Mashiach is coming and it's coming imminent, and we're going out of Golos, and all these things are going to be happening, and Gimel Tammuz seem to be pointing in the opposite direction. So we feel that the Rebbe sort of answered this question by that sikha, telling us that that's what happened by the Frierdiker Rebbe. Initially, it looked like something which is extremely negative, and reality was leading to something positive. It was the beginning of his redemption, but no, it just came in stages. And then the Rebbe goes on to a long sikha. Why did it come in stages? Why couldn't it all be at once? If Hashem is making a miracle already, make the miracle. Let it happen all the way. Yes.
Just keep work with the Nihalim Shala Rabbeim, it's already more than 100.
So I don't think people say Tilim the Rabbeim from all the way back. In other words, a chassid of the Frierdiker Rebbe that said his kapitel during his lifetime will continue saying it after. But if somebody is not going to say the Alter Rebbe's kapitel, the Middle Rebbe's kapitel, but those who said it will not stop saying it.
Right, but like the Frierdiker Rebbe, it's already more than 100.
No.
So
Frierdiker Rebbe was born in 1880. 1880? Yeah. So 1980 was 100 years, and now it's 40 years later.
and I know it's not a question at all, just right now, but what if not? What are we gonna do?
We know that we'll meet again.
Like,
We'll meet again. We'll talk about it then. So.
I know, already, I would love to say the middle on the fifth thread.
If what?
If I'm gonna say the middle on the fifth thread.
Frierdiker Rebbe, right? Of the fifth.
Yes.
The only thing I can think of is like some other thing. Let's say Basiligani. The Rebbe said every year one chapter. What did he do when the 20 years ended? Started from the beginning again. So he calculated that way. One of the saddest part about the whole story of Yud Tammuz, but it's a lesson for all of us, is we always talk about the communists, but it's not just the communists. The communist regime actually allowed freedom of religion, believe it or not. So what happened? What happened was that there were a few hundred young, wild kids who were Jewish kids, and they formed a group called the Jewish section of the communists, known as the Section. And they were the ones that were even more violent than the communists themselves, to uproot everything in Yiddishkeit. They came out and they said, mikvahs it's not sanitary, don't allow such a thing like a mikvah. Bris milah for a baby, that's barbaric, don't let it happen. Mitzvahs, these are primitive things that people did in the olden days with that superstition, get rid of it. And they basically were fighting to uproot everything in Yiddishkeit. And what was even more painful than anything else was that when the Frierdiker was arrested, two people came to his house. Frierdiker writes this whole story. It's in the Kuji Diburim. One was Nachmanson and one was Lulov. Both were children of Chassidus, the Lubavitch Chassidic family that became communists. And they had such a fire of murder in their eyes, unbelievable, that they were ready. They killed people. They killed Rabbanim, they killed Shoftim. They prided themselves to have they killed so many people. So there was at one point when the Frierdiker was going to the jail, he was carrying his talus and tefillin. So one of them said to the Frierdiker Rebbe, Chassidim bleiben Chassidim. In other words, the Chassid always remains a Chassid. My grandfather carried your grandfather's talus and tefillin, so let me carry yours also. So the Frierdiker took it back from him and said, no, your grandfather carried my grandfather's tefillin where he wanted to go. And you want to carry my talus and tefillin where you want to go. That I won't allow you to. And I just think for a moment, if he said that that person carried the Rebbe Marash's talus and tefillin, that means he wasn't just an ordinary chassid, he was somebody who was connected to the Rebbe Marash. And look what came of it. I think the lesson is, and especially in today's day and age, that parents should not take things for granted. I daven, I learn, I say Chitas, Rambam. My kids automatically will just be tzaddikim. It's a very dark time. On one hand, it's right before Mashiach. On the other hand, it's the darkest moments of Golus. And we learned about this many times, how both things go together. And there's a lot of klipa out there. And we see the results, unfortunately. So that means that parents have to invest time and energy and attention to children. Nothing is happening automatically. If it does, it's just a miracle. A lot has to be invested. I once had a guest at my table, somebody whose name was Notke Barkan. He was a chassid that came from Riga. And the famous scientist, Branover, became about Tshuva through him in Riga. So when he came out of Russia, he came to America, he was by the Rebbe's Fabrengen. My house is right near 770, so he would come in to have a coffee and cake before Fabrengen. So he's from Riga. And he told them when the Frierdiker went out of jail, at a certain point, he came to Riga, which is in Latvia. Who lives in Riga? Family, which is called Lulov. Parents of this guy who arrested him. So the by Fabrengen, the Frierdiker asked, where is this chassid, Lulov? So he said he's embarrassed to come. I don't blame him. And the Frierdiker told him that they should come. Should come to Fabrengen. So if you want to understand what Abbas Yisrael is, when the Frierdiker was here in America, this is in a Sikha Tafshin Hey, 1945. We know the Frierdiker's condition physically, medically was very, very poor. And they didn't allow a lot of people in. But at this Fabrengen, apparently there was a lot of pushing. And suddenly you hear someone screaming, stop pushing. Said in Yiddish, "Quetsch dem Rebbe," which means you're pressing against the Rebbe. When you push the table, it's pressing against the Frierdiker Rebbe. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, a Yid doesn't press me, doesn't quetch me, which means doesn't hurt me. Even in Shpalerka, that's the name of the jail, when they told me that in 24 hours, they prided themselves, they told the Frierdiker Rebbe, you should know, in 24 hours, we're going to execute you. The Yid in him didn't hurt me. But you can even begin to understand what that means. So this is what the Frierdiker went through. And I think one of the strongest lessons we can learn from that story is, try to think back a little bit. Picture 1927, Russia. Communist regime is in their heyday. Yevsektia is flying wild, a wild movement of Jewish rebellious kids, arresting people right, left, and center, closing down yeshivas, chadarim, mikveh, kashrus, anything you could think of, arresting everyone. The only one that's left that's active and strengthened Yiddishkeit is the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he also gets arrested. If someone would have asked you today, or any of these days between today and Yud Beis Tammuz in 1927, tell me, what do you think will be the future here? The answer will be communism will be, conquering the world, and Lubavitch I don't think there'll be much left. Okay, now it's 1982. It's 2022. And where's communism? I mean, we have Meshuggah that's running the country. The communist regime is no longer in existence. Not only didn't it's no longer in existence. And Lubavitch, and what the Frierdiker Rebbe established, and what the Frierdiker Rebbe fought for, is growing and growing and growing and spread to every corner of the world. Yep.
Why do you say that Marshall seed this week now instead of the surgery?
Because the seed, when it's surgery, the feeling is that it's painful, but it'll lead something good. When you put a seed in the ground, no one is pained by it. Because you see openly, clearly how this is only leading to something that's better. I mean, there gives another marshal. A person goes to sleep at night. Nobody's crying because they're going to sleep. I mean, babies cry, they don't want to go to sleep, yeah. But adults don't cry when they have to go to sleep. Why? You're going to be now for 8 hours inactive, not doing anything. It's clear this is just the process to refresh, to feel better. Tomorrow will be, it's normal. You don't even see it as negative leading to positive. You see this as part of the steps to the positive. That's what it means. That now we see it more openly and more clearly. So the point is that if in those days, if you look at things, you would definitely think one way, but now you look back and you see how what the Frierdiker Rebbe spoke about and what he said is Chai v'Kayim La'ad Le'el Me'elamim, and what they stood for is gone. And the same is now. You might look around and say, how's it possible? Sheikh, any moment, everything will be turned around, everything will change. So just wait another moment, not much. Today is a good day. Sivan. Wait another moment, and we'll look back and we'll see that that's the way the Nefesh Bahamas thinks, Apiteva, but there's a big God. And when the Rebbe says something, he's saying it openly in Hashem's name. This is what's going to happen. And we'll see exactly the same thing. We'll look back and we'll see how everything was everything that was predicted and everything that people thought. By the way, Gimel Tammuz, I can't begin to tell you, all the newspapers were writing and describing each one using the best talent that they have, how this is even before Gimel Tammuz happened. It's soon going to happen, and the Lubavitch is going to fall apart. And everyone's writing how the Lubavitch will fall apart. And what do we see? We see how the Rebbe is doing everything continuously. And the Lubavitch grew by leaps and bounds from then till now. And that's why we have to look at things and to realize that Gimel Tammuz is part of a process that's leading up to Gula, to Mashiach. And like I said, Bli Neder, hopefully we won't even need it because we'll have the Rebbe here again and we'll meet all in Eretz Yisrael, hopefully learning new sichas. But if Chas v'Shalom not, I'll be around and we'll maybe meet in the dorm and talk about all this a little bit more. Okay, so today is the last shir for this school year. Tavshin Nun Aleph, Dvar Malchus. Yeah, Gimel Tammuz. That's the signal, Gimel Tammuz. Okay. Okay, everybody, see you later tonight. I don't know if you know about it, but there's a graduation tonight. Hope to see you all there. Oh, I brought this. So this is whoever wants can read. This is about the story of the Frierdiker Rebbe's arrest. And this is about how the Rebbe came out of Russia, out of the Nazis.